Welcome to episode 26.5 of the Birds Informer podcast. We're coming here to give you some NFL Combine recap. I'm Tyler Quill. I'm joined by Kevin Means.
Let's go.
Let's go. And been a fun weekend, really getting into the draft season. And big talk at the NFL Combine. We'll get right into the Combine standouts. Means you were impressed. We were all impressed. Mr. 1.6% body fat, DK Metcalf.
Dude is insane. I mean, I was messaging you before the combine even happened. I said, this guy, all he's got to do is all he really has to do is run a 4.5 and he could go top 10.
Yeah, with his size, anything below a 4.5 would do.
Well, that's the thing is you just looking at the tape, he can do everything else. He's got the hands for being a college wide receiver. He's a very good route runner. And on top of it, I was just like, all he has to do is just run a good 40 time. That's it. That's all I expected. What's he do? Runs a 4.33.
The second fastest for the wide receivers, 4.33. And coming into this, like you were saying, we were talking about who the top receiver is. I thought his teammate A.J. Brown would be the top guy, who didn't have a bad combine, but
he didn't stand out. He just had
exactly.
A.J. Brown did exactly what you thought he would. Metcalf did that and then times 5. He just blew everyone out. There's no one even that came close to how well he overperformed what everyone thought he would, really.
Yeah, and everyone was in awe. I mean, the scouts were looking at each other like, did you get that time too? Did you get that time too? And even John Gruden said, who's going to tackle that guy? Just when you look at him, look at his size. You watch him running through those drills, and when he was the next one up, he looked like a grown man out there standing next to these other guys.
It looked strange. I watched it live. Number one, it's every year there's those combine times, the 40 times. It's always unofficial for a little while, and you get the hand time. That's what you see right away. It was 4.33, and I'm like, that's just got to be every once in a while there's a bad one where it's a full tenth of a second off or something. I'm like, that can't be right. I'm like, they got to be off on this one. No, perfectly right on it. And it just looks so strange watching that big of a human being run almost as fast as a guy like Paris Campbell.
I kept waiting for that to come back as maybe a 4.48 or something like that. And
exactly.
Then I was thinking, what if this comes back even lower? What if he broke 4.3? That would have really just blown people's mind. But a little bit of a Pac-Man game when you look at his the spider chart for him. One of the worst 3-cone drill times out of any of the wide receivers. What do you think about that? He runs fast straight, but hopefully he doesn't have to change direction.
I mean, what's that tell you, though? I mean, realistically, he's not – no one ever thought he was going to be a player in the screen game or anything, which is where the 3-cone drill might come into play. But he's just going to run your route, and he's going to beat everyone out or out-muscle them every time. I mean, that's all it is. That's something he could work on, too. I mean, I think he majorly bulked up, as we could see, with the 1.6% body fat, which is borderline unhealthy.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think he just bulked up for the combine because he knew that 40 time, if he killed it, that's going to skyrocket him to the top 10. He might even go. There's a good chance he goes top 5 because of this.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked he ran the 3-cone. I want you to run that 40. Just call it a day.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And the other thing that this tells me, and this goes for everyone in the combine that performs well, a lot of these numbers aren't even, to me, telling me that this guy's so fast and everything. It's more of this guy worked his ass off to get that good 40 time, and I love seeing that. You have guys like him, DK Metcalf, Paris Campbell. This guy that ran today, Zedrick Woods, had the fastest time at 4.29. These guys are hard workers. And you could tell the guys that underperform that aren't working hard in the all season because it's not all your 40 time isn't always about how fast you are on the field. A lot of times it's not even related at all. But it is slightly. But you have guys, and we'll get to it a little bit later. Elijah Holyfield was running slower than 90% of the people on the field. There were linemen running faster than him.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just a work ethic thing that I look at from the combine a lot of times.
That's the big thing. These guys go to these specific trainers, and a lot of them are training together, and they're working on these specific drills. That's why a lot of people say the that offseason for leading into the draft for rookies really hurts them because they're not working on a lot of football things. They're working on a lot of these combine drills for the first month and a half of the offseason.
Yeah, you're working on your combine, your drills, and then you're working on your pro day events and stuff like that and everything that goes into that.
Yeah, if I'm DK, I do not even think about running the 40 at my pro day. He should
No, there's no point in it.
go through the drills, go through the making some catches and running some routes, but do not touch that 40 time. But moving on with this 40 time, the guy that beat him by a hundredth of a second or 200ths of a second, Paris Campbell with a 4.31, leading the wide receivers. He went from a fringe first rounder to, I think he solidified himself into that 20 to high 20s range for wide receivers. What do you think?
I mean, that's a big jump because I don't think he was a fringe first rounder, to be honest.
Okay.
But the thing I do see from this is it's something that like I hadn't paid that much attention to Campbell honestly before this, and it's something that now that I see this, I'm gonna have to go back and look at him because there were three different Ohio State receivers in the combine, and they're all in my mind fairly close, like in the probably second day guys, maybe third day, and he just once again he's one of those guys that just outperformed everyone, took a step ahead of everyone else, including his former teammates. And it's something that a lot of people are going to go back and look at his tape now because of this. And that's a great thing for him. And that's what's going to shoot your combine or your draft stock up.
And all it takes is that one guy to really fall in love with that speed that you see. And, I mean, remember all the guys that Al Davis took? I mean, he saw Darius Hayward Baylight at the combine and took him over Crabtree. And
Stephen Hill.
I don't know. Oh, Stephen Hill. The Jets are still kicking themselves for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
You're exactly right. That's why a lot of this does have to be taken with a grain of salt, as this does serve as an opportunity for guys to just flash and then have teams look at them a little bit more, like that Andy Isabella from UMass. Him running a 4.31 really shocked everybody. Like you knew Campbell coming from a big school, big receiver, that late first, early second round pick, and he not 100% surprised when he runs a 4.31. But then small school guy comes in, and now all of a sudden everyone's loading that tape a little bit more and checking into him a little bit.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's someone I'm going to look at more. I do think this is a possible target for the Eagles going forward, whether it be end of the first or in the second round, if he can fall to there, because there are a lot of good receivers. They might not have showed up at the combine as much as him and Metcalf, but there are a lot of good receivers in there. So it's hard to say. After Metcalf, there's a big group that are all kind of bunched together that do different things, and it's going to be really difficult to distinguish one from the other, like who's going to go ahead of who, in my opinion. But he catapulted himself into that second tier of wide receivers with this, I think.
He did. Another guy that has been climbing basically since the college football season ended. You've seen him slowly keep climbing up. And Montez Sweat, he went to the Senior Bowl, wowed everyone at the Senior Bowl with what he could do and how he could dominate the offensive lineman in there. And he continued to wow people in Indy this week.
Yeah, he's another guy that, although he might have just performed himself out of reach for the Eagles, in my opinion. But he's another guy that I could see them targeting. A 4.4 140-yard dash as an edge rusher. I mean, that's unreal. 36. He's a freak athlete, honestly.
He is, and the numbers he put up, you don't see from guys at his size. 6'6", 260, and he ran a 4.41. Yikes! Like that's the kind of guy that you can put on the edge, and he'll be there for the next decade, and you don't have to worry about it. And he went from, like you said, a possible target for the Eagles into that 20, 25 range to he might make himself into the top 10.
Yeah, I think he probably moved himself top 15, maybe even top 10. That's a tough move though. The draft is top 15 heavy the way I look at it, and to break into that's going to be tough. The top 10 is really tough. There's a lot of guys there. I mean, you have guys like Ed Oliver that's like been falling down mock draft boards to the back of the top 10 and stuff like that. So it's hard for me to lump him in there based on just the combine performance, but he's had such a great post college season that it's possible. You could see him move up there, especially with this combine.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see what teams took out of him for meetings and everything to see if he does make that even one more step. And one other guy that I get, he's a combine standout, even though he didn't do a damn thing on the field, but he is not as short as everyone thought. Kyler Murray hit that 5'10" mark, and now is seen as a possible first overall pick. What do you think?
So I've said since the beginning that I think that the Cardinals aren't in love with Josh Rosen at all, especially with the new coaching staff. I think they want to get their quarterback in. And whether he's 5'9" or 5'10", at a certain point, it doesn't really matter to me. But I guess it was a big step, right? That's a big step for him, 5'10".
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were even wondering if he would come in below 5'9", possibly, but where he would be in that low 5'9" area. So for him to hit 5'10" was big.
It is, but you see so many short quarterbacks do it nowadays. But I do think he will be the first overall pick. I mean, there's been a lot of reports as the offseason's been going on. It's just every day it looks more and more like he will go first overall, and that's going to shake up the draft big time.
Especially within the last 24, 48 hours post-combine now that the Cardinals are even thinking about starting to maybe even shop Josh Rosen, and it looks like it's only going to cost a third-round pick, which
is that what is that what the reports are? A third-round pick?
I believe it was Kurt Warner talked to a well-respected GM that he knows, and he said that his value is a third-round pick.
I mean, 1 year. That's all it takes for you to drop that far.
Man, 1 year, and that
the
team
thing
was so bad.
The thing with Rosen is like every quarterback. I mean, there's quarterbacks that have Joe Webb. Like, there's all sorts of quarterbacks that have only started a handful of games and have had like one of those jump games, like where everyone's like, "Whoa, who is this guy?" Rosen started all season, right? Did he start all 16 games?
I think he might have. I think he might have missed the first or second. They had Bradford there. I think Bradford played 1 or 2 games early on, but he came in and
he didn't have a single out of all those games. So even if he didn't play 16, say he played 14, he didn't have a single game where he stood out, it's almost difficult, especially when you have a guy like David Johnson that could take it to the house on any screen pass. It's like
they didn't give him the screen passes. That offense, the offensive line was terrible. Just the offensive scheme. Like, I thought you would take a guy who was one of the top quarterbacks in the previous draft and bring in this offensive mind. I thought that's why you bring in Kingsbury, and you bring him in to match him with Rosen and build those two together.
See, I've looked at it differently, where I looked at it as you bring in Kingsbury, you go get him that quarterback that's going to work in his offense, and there's no one that's going to work in his offense better than Kyler Murray, in my opinion.
That's true. I mean, any of these younger, or not even young, the new age offensive minds will find a way to make an athlete and a quarterback like Kyler Murray work.
Exactly. It's not even whether or not Kyler Murray takes a step forward with his passing game. It's just his playmaking ability in general, that a guy like Kingsbury, if he's able to translate to the NFL even a little bit, Murray will probably, in the first 3 games, if he does go to Arizona, outperform Rosen what he did all season, in my opinion. And Rosen's going to be a good quarterback. He will, or not Rosen. Not Rosen. Rosen's going to be a bad quarterback. Oh God.
Hey, I can clip that now. Rosen's going to be a good quarterback. You said it right here. That'll be a solid clip.
Oh man, that's going to be on my tombstone.
But there you go.
But Murray is going to be a good quarterback just because of his playmaking ability. Rosen will not.
Man, what a situation for him to walk into if he walks into that Cardinals locker room. You get a leader with Larry Fitzgerald still there for at least another year. Larry Fitzgerald might just never retire. He's just going to play till he's like 50 and crawl for 5-yard outs and catch first downs. But then you got a playmaker like David Johnson, who was underutilized last year, and also Christian Kirk, a receiver they drafted early last year. To bring in a rookie quarterback with those young weapons and an old veteran to kind of help him out would be really good for that team.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't see him not going to the Cardinals overall, and I guess he had a good combine. I guess.
I mean, it was the talk. He was the only thing people were talking about after those day one or day 2 with the quarterback, wide receiver, and tight ends. But moving in to some people that were talked about for not great reasons. Opened up Friday with the workouts. Elijah Holyfield, good God, is he running in quicksand?
Yeah, this is an all-time like just dud of a performance. I don't know why your people let you even run in the combine if you're going to run that slow.
You have an idea that you might not be the fastest guy. And if you have that, if you think you're not going to run around 4.5s, somewhere around there, you don't run.
It's even 4.6s. If you think you're going to run 4.6s, it's okay for a running back. That's fine. If you're not, as long as you're not supposed to be this home run hitting running back, that's fine. But you ran a what was the official time? It was a 4.78, I believe.
4.78.
Yeah, the unofficial one was I think it was 4.81, which was like really like crazy. But yeah, 4.78, like that's just awful. What you have written down here, 2 kickers and 1 punter ran faster than him.
Yeah, it might have been the other way around. It might have been 2 punters, 1 kicker. But either way, 3
it doesn't matter.
Kickers, 3 people that kick balls for a living, not run, ran faster 40 times.
I didn't even know they ran in the 40s.
I think only a few do.
Only 3 of them did probably, and they ran faster than them. All of them.
Oh,
There's offensive one.
Only 3 ran. You're exactly right. There were six special teams guys there. Only 3 ran, and all 3 ran a faster 40.
And these are guys that aren't trained to run a 40-yard dash either.
No, none of them were in these specialty camps for the last month working on their perfect form.
They probably
and everything.
For one day the week before this combine, last week, they probably went with like a trainer and were like, hey, just so you don't look like an asshole when you're lining up for the 40-yard dash and get whistled a bunch of times, let's show you how to do it. I don't care what your time is. Just go. And it was clear when
Holyfield had the start was one of the worst. Just watching him run, just not good. Just not good.
Yeah. It looked like he was running on a treadmill. But it's just, like I said, I just don't see how your people let you run in the combine that slow. He could go undrafted this year because of that. Where me and you were both looking at, we were talking about him last week, saying hey, this might be a late round guy for the Eagles, like 3rd, 4th round, maybe even 2nd.
I went through our text messages. I deleted every text that I sent with any positive to Holyfield.
Wait, did you not tell me that he was a home run hitter?
Yeah, I thought I regret everything I ever said. I clearly did not know.
Clearly. And I looked at,
I was watching
after you said that, person. I was like, after you said that, I went and I looked at some tape. I was like, he's an alright runner. He's real physical, which you expect of a slow guy. But he also was running through big ass holes that the Georgia offensive line was creating for him. And I think that's what I guess made him look like a home run hitter.
Maybe I had this Georgia running back blinder on where, I mean, Georgia's just been pumping out good running backs.
Oh, yeah.
And
running back university.
They will again next year. But, man, not great.
Pathetic. And I hope he goes undrafted because, like I said earlier, with the guys like DK Metcalf and Paris Campbell and Montez Sweat, where you're working your ass off and it shows that you are willing to put in the work to be the best player you can be or get drafted as high as possible, it's obvious to me that Holyfield did not.
Yeah,
and that's a big red flag right over him. I do not want anything to do with him.
And another guy who is seen as a mid to late first rounder before this Brandon Graham signing, thought that was a possibility for the Eagles. Maybe
I thought he was going to be one of the elite. This guy right here was going to be one of the so-called elite rushers that would fall to the Eagles, and they might be forced to take just because of the talent alone.
Yeah, and he
Ja'Kai
did the exact opposite of what Montez Sweat did. Ja'Kai Polite plummeting down, maybe leaving the first round now after his workout, and Montez Sweat climbing up.
Yeah. Polite, I mean, we talked about before, it's sounding like he had some bad interviews, which right there could make him undraftable for some teams, a bad interview. He's a smaller guy with, like, not great length. He's not tall or anything. So it's something like you expected. If he was one of my guys I wanted to pay attention to in this combine to see, hey, he's smaller. If he can show that he's extra athletic to make up for it, he could jump into like the top 20, top 15 even. And he did the exact opposite. He just did not show up at all. and he had bad interviews, I think he falls into the second round, honestly. And he'll probably be undraftable for some teams because of it.
My only disagreement with your evaluation with him is the small statement. He's 6'3", 258.
For his position and what people expect. I mean, you have guys like Montez Sweat. Him and Sweat were competing for their draft stock, right?
True. Sweat's got 3 inches on him and 2 pounds.
Yeah.
So that helps.
And a lot of teams look for length like that.
Yeah. And the
guys
like over
Ziggy,
3 inches.
Remember Ziggy Ansah in the draft and everything. And like, there's been a ton of guys like that. That it's just like the length is what gets them drafted real high, length and athletic ability. And he has neither of those. And he's technically a good rusher, but he didn't explode in any way possible in the combine.
All right, and there's one other guy I wanted to talk about who is not a dud, but just surprisingly keeps falling. And I wouldn't be shocked if he falls all the way to 25. Didn't have this written down. I'm going to pull a little audible on you, but Ed Oliver from Houston.
He's not
coming into. I know he might not.
Don't even say he's falling to the top
25. He's been falling to the teens. He was
mock
seen as
drafts.
I know, but he still had a solid combine. 32 bench presses, 36-inch vertical from a guy his size is impressive, to say the least. But what happened to him where he was a clear maybe first overall pick coming into the season? I understand he had a down year at Houston, but I still thought he would be a consensus top 5, definitely top 10.
Yeah, I mean, because I noticed the same thing you did with Ed Oliver, where every single mock draft, it just seems like he's falling down and down. And I think it's just because he played in Houston with bad coaches and getting double and triple teamed every single play. But it was when I look back at it, because I saw him falling down and I looked back at some tape of him, he still had that extra burst off the line he was always just a step past the scrimmage before anyone even like made contact with him. And that's something that like is an elite player. That's what they do. You saw guys like Myles Garrett a couple years ago in the draft. He was one of those guys. I mean, he's way up there. But that just always had the step going right past that, and it makes such a big difference no matter how athletic you are, how long. It's a trait that not everyone possesses, to time it like that, and he has it. And he's also, it's not like he's unathletic. He's perfect size. It's just that he played at a small school. He didn't blow up his conference with stats and everything like that, which is what I think people expected out of him. And I think that's why he's falling. It's just because he didn't have like worldly stats.
Okay, he's a guy that I couldn't go this podcast, this video, without mentioning him, because he's a guy that I thought had played well, or I thought would still be a top prospect. So it'll be interesting to see through this draft process where he falls and where he exactly fits in with the team. But let's do a quick run through the weekend. So we had Friday. We talked about a few of the running backs already, but Friday we had the running backs and offensive linemen. Offensive line really doesn't get to showcase themselves well. They do have a few on-field drills. The numbers really aren't there because guys are running the 40, but you're asking a 300-pound guy to run 40 yards down the field. It's something they're never going to do in a game.
Yeah, it's when the scouts that are really drafting for teams, they look at like the splits and stuff like that, the 10-yard split where it shows your explosiveness. But there wasn't anyone that just outperformed the rest or underperformed. So it doesn't really warrant us going deep into the offensive line right now. We'll get into that when it gets closer to draft time for the Eagles.
Closer to draft, that'll definitely be a need for the Eagles with offensive tackle and really across the board at the line. So we'll get more into that when we start looking at the film and watching guys. But with the running backs, guy that I wanted to mention, because Eagles do need a running back, and the 2 second-round picks is where they could look to fill that hole. A guy, Miles Sanders, out of Penn State, really had a good combine to solidify himself as a second-round pick. He was a fringe floating day 2 pick, maybe second or third round, but I think he solidified himself into that second-round conversation.
Yeah, he was a mid-second, third tier running back for me in this group. He really jumped ahead, in my opinion. I mean, he didn't have a great time, but he ran faster than what anyone probably expected him to. But he's definitely in consideration for me with the second-round pick. Guy that I love this year in the draft, Darrell Henderson. He ran a 4.49, which is a little bit slower than I thought he would. But once again, there's combine times. As long as you run okay, it doesn't really show that much on the field to me.
Yeah,
So, but Darrell Henderson's a guy that he did fairly well, and I have a big target for him for the Eagles in the second round.
that time for Henderson was good, especially because he showed breakaway speed on film, but you're wondering, he
Yeah,
played
does that?
in the American Conference. Does that transfer to the NFL, or does it transfer to when he's with these other athletic guys? And going sub 4.5 is all you can ask for from a guy with his
Exactly. I just wanted to make
explosiveness.
sure going into it, I just wanted to see him run sub 4.5 or even low 4.5s would be fine with me. But if he ran 4.59 or 4.58, that would be, I'd have a little bit of an issue with that, and he would throw some red flags to me.
Yeah, that he did what he had to do. He showed he's definitely, if not that second running back, he's the second or third guy off the board, and definitely separated himself from the likes of Devin Singletary and David Montgomery, who just didn't flash this week. They didn't do
Yeah,
anything terrible. They didn't show up and really bomb like Holyfield, but they didn't break themselves away from that group of day two running backs.
yeah. What for those two, I really wanted to see if they had that burst to make it to the second level and break away like they were able to in college. And it kind of showed to me that they don't and won't have the ability to do that in the NFL. And that's a bit of a worry for me. I'm not really looking at them. One of the guys that I think did perform very well is a local guy, Raquel Armstead. Ran a 4.45. That's the second fastest time for a running back in this year's combine. Pretty damn fast. He's someone I'm going to have to go back and look because I'll admit, while he's local, don't really care for Temple football that much unless they're doing great. And I'm going to have to go back and look at him to see what he's about. And he's a
Yeah,
guy that a lot of teams, I think, will look at again.
yeah, definitely one of those guys that came in and made you have to go back and look at him. He proved himself to be more that he can hang with the bigger guys and deserves recognition in the draft this year. But
Exactly.
moving on to Saturday, which is the exciting day because you get the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends out on the field. We touched a lot on the wide receivers, so we won't go really much into that. But with the quarterbacks, again, Murray didn't do anything else on the field other than get measured, which is ridiculous. I understand quarterbacks want to throw to their guys, but Dwayne Haskins, the other top quarterback, 1 and 2 with him and Murray right now, he ran really slow.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that not all guys need to run fast. Everyone always says how slow Brady ran, but Stephen A. Smith, I thought this guy was a scrambler. What happened?
He's a college scrambler. He's able to escape college defenders.
He's not
well.
even a scrambler.
Yeah.
I don't know what Stephen Smith, but
Yeah, that's true. But
Dwayne Haskins did throw well while he was there, which is what you wanted to see.
he threw well. It does look effortless when he throws. It's like it looked like he wasn't even really stepping into his throws, and the ball was just jumping out of his hands. I have to admit, I'm not a big Haskins guy, but his throwing looked good. Being slow in today's NFL, it is a little bit. I mean, there's not many guys that can't run at all that are lighting up the world right now in the NFL besides Brady. I mean, you have guys like Rodgers who can scramble, Wentz, even Goff can scramble a little bit, and it's like it's a little bit of a red flag, but the Eagles aren't going to be targeting any quarterbacks, I don't think, early.
No, it's just interesting to see that lock for that or the group of second quarterbacks is odd. There isn't the top guys, and Murray's jumping out to the top now, but there isn't that stud that you look for like when Wentz and Goff were coming out, when like Luck and RG3 were coming out.
No, usually you have guys like that that have the athletic ability and have set college on fire, and Murray did pretty well, but that were like otherworldly, like you knew had the skills. Murray's still a question mark, in my opinion, just because of he hasn't been focused on football. You don't know if he can do it. But
yeah, that's the big thing. Even in college, good.
And that's the thing with me is with him is like, and with this quarterback group overall, is that this guy's a big question mark, and he's still undoubtedly the number one quarterback in this draft. Is like that's throwing some shade to the other quarterbacks, honestly.
Yeah, how quickly he was able to. Oh, is he a first round pick? You know, not only is he a first round pick, he probably will go number 1 overall. It was
Yeah.
shocking to see. But keep it moving along. As we talked about Murray in length earlier, to Sunday we had what really the Eagles should be looking at a lot with the edge, the defensive line, and the linebackers. Now they re-signed Brandon Graham, but they still need depth at the edge. Interior D-line is very important, and they don't have many linebackers. So who really stood out for you outside of Montez Sweat, as we know he's the athletic freak?
Yeah, I mean, Ziad Sweat. My target, I want another linebacker, especially with the question mark whether or not Hicks is coming back. And even if he does come back, there's a good chance he's only going to play half the season. And would you look at that? The two guys that are atop of most people's boards right now at linebacker were the top 2 fastest, top 2 overall, just the best performing at the combine linebackers, Devin White and Devin Bush. White, for the Eagles' sake, I don't think he's going to fall to them. Bush,
he's not going to fall to many teams, so the White will probably be top 5.
No, I don't know about top 5, but I don't think he goes top 5. But Bush is a guy that could definitely fall. I've seen him float all around mock drafts, whether it be mid-first round. I've seen him fall to the second round. But he's a guy I like. I think he fits that role next to Bradham where they do things. They're almost the complete opposites as far as linebackers go. And I think that's perfect. I think that's something the Eagles do want. So he's a guy that performed, and I like the way he plays.
Yeah, that's a guy I'm hoping he didn't outperform falling to 25. So hopefully he would be a very good fit there. Another D lineman that they could have to take in the first round, but could fall to one of those second round picks that did well is Dexter Lawrence, who played with Clemson. Kind of hidden, not really hidden, but you weren't sure if those guys were all just a product of each other with Dexter Lawrence, Clayton Farrell, and Christian Wilkinson. But all 3 of those guys have shown to be good individually. They're not just a product of playing with each other and being good together. They're all good individually, and I think Lawrence would fit really well on that interior D line next to Fletcher Cox.
I think him or Wilkins would, honestly. Wilkins can play in a 4-3 or a 3-4 on the interior, in my opinion. But I think both of them fit really well. Farrell's probably not going to make it to the Eagles, I would say. But all 3 of them, it is a little bit, I don't know. It feels weird that there's 3 guys on the same defensive line that are this highly, that are going to be first-round picks. It's like they are a little bit of a product of each other, in my opinion.
They are. They all seem they're so similar, especially Wilkinson and Lawrence. They're so similar players. I mean, they ran the 40 together, 5.04 for Wilkins, 5.05 for Lawrence. They so similar. It is tough on film to say, hey, how's this guy doing? Because none of them are seeing double teams because you can't double team any of those guys because the other ones are going to kill you.
Exactly. So it's hard to judge them. Like I said, or we talked about earlier with Ed Oliver. Like you have a guy like that's getting double and triple teamed every single play almost, and you can judge someone on that being like, hey, he's going up against 2 or 3 guys. These guys are all going individually up against one-on-one most of the time, and they all performed very well this year and last year. They were all great players last year too. So I could see any of those 3 realistically the Eagles would target.
Yeah, and one moving on to Monday now, just to wrap things up. Corners and safeties on Monday. No one really shined. You had a lot of guys run fast. You don't have the studs this year at corner, really. Greedy Williams at 6'2" ran, double checking what he was. I think he was 4 in the 4.3s, 4.32.
Yeah, maybe? That's a good time for him. I really wanted to see him perform, and he did. I think that solidified him as the number 1 overall cornerback.
Corner. 4.37 for Greedy Williams.
Without a doubt. That just made him the number 1 cornerback in this draft. And then you got the 2 guys, Baker and Byron Murphy. Yeah. Both of them are if you line them up next to each other, they're almost exactly the same height, weight. They did almost exactly the same numbers at this combine. I mean, even if one of them stepped up, the other one did exactly the same thing. So they just made each other like that much closer in this year's draft. And it's
They're
going to
almost the opposite of Greedy Williams, where Williams is the athletic specimen, where he's got the length and he's got the speed. The other two are just solid corners. They're
be,
not the
yeah,
fastest, but on film and in the
they're-
drills, when they're the coverage drills they do, they both played well. But Greedy struggled a little bit with his change of direction drills, but his speed and you can that's a fundamentals that you can teach, where you can't teach the athletic ability that he has compared to the other two.
exactly. And that's the thing that like a lot of NFL teams you'll see, and a lot of just scouts and mock drafters and stuff like that will look at is just he's just athletic specimen, and that's something that you can't teach, and that's what'll make him go ahead of Murphy and Baker. And like I said, Baker and Murphy, a lot of people do have the Eagles picking the cornerback. I don't see it happening, but if they do, it's because one of those two falls to them, and they might just be so tempted to do it.
Yeah, I'd be shocked with corner. I mean, if they get a corner, I think it'll be they'll sign a veteran. You have all these young guys that stepped up last year, and a lot of them were hurt, but you're probably going to see them go. The Eagles' needs are with running back is a big one, unless Le'Veon Bell gets signed for that heavy price tag, and I don't know how we would fit that in, but
Hey,
whatever.
there were reports today that the Jets do like what they for some reason like what they saw of Tevin Coleman this past year. I don't know what they were looking at, but maybe they're like, we don't want to pay Bell number, we'll give it to Tevin Coleman, and now Bell's willing to take a cut. But yeah, that's another podcast, another time.
Yeah, another time.
And I honestly, as far as the draft goes with the Eagles and running backs, I see them targeting to fill that hole via free agency, regardless of whether it's Bell or someone else. So, because I don't think that they want a workhorse running back like Josh Jacobs.
I think you can get a workhorse running back in the first round with Jacobs, but either Henderson or Saunders are my two lookouts in the second round.
That's the reason why I like Henderson is I feel like he could fill that like third down running back. He can mix in passing game and everything. So he's a good committee running back, I would say. Saunders I have to take a closer look at, but he just profiles to me more as a workhorse type running back, which doesn't usually work in a committee very well.
Yeah, it's true. But the Eagles will be looking at running back. They'll look at some of these interior D linemen, and the offensive line is a lot of their
across the board. The offensive line.
Yeah. A lot of the guys are getting older, so at worst they need depth. Look for them to take at minimum one, probably two, maybe three linemen in the first throughout the draft. In the first 3 rounds, you'll see at least one lineman. The first round and 2 second round picks.
Unless they go out and sign someone crazy in free agency, which I don't see them doing, considering they just locked up half their offensive line. But yeah, I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they went 2 offensive linemen in the first 3 picks.
And neither would I. And we'll get more into the team needs and what they can do in free agency and specific players that they'll be targeting with that first round pick and second round picks in our later podcasts and episodes. So thanks for listening, and we'll be here with episode 27 probably within the next week or so.
Yep.
All right. See you guys.